So with that comment, I'll kind of leave that with you.
I thank you for that. I think we need a little more on our side, but I do thank you for that. Mr. Underwood, how would you like to proceed? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Taylor, you had a question? Yes.
Well, I don't have a question. I have a comment. And my comment is, Mr. Fincham is the director of planning. We placed him here to look at these situations and to determine in his best estimate based on his expertise what is fair and proper in the way the decision should be made. I don't agree with everything Mr. Fincham says, and this is not regarding Mr. Underwood. Mr. Underwood, I understand where you're coming from, and I understand, you're representing your constituents, and I understand that. But I think we have to be very careful, or we'll be perceived as micromanaging the staff. Now, basically, Mr. Fincham has researched this. He has come up with a decision based on his expertise. We respect him. If we didn't, he wouldn't be here. So, based on that, I think we should accept his recommendation and move on.
Mr. Chairman, I have to comment. There have been many leaders who have been wrong. There have been many people sitting in positions that have not made the right decision. This is a subjective opinion. There are not facts. This is his subjective opinion. He has an opinion. I have an opinion. You have an opinion. That's why we vote. But there are no facts to say it's either on the left or on the right. Absolutely, we want every staff member to use all the wherewithal to make every decision. That's why I say I respectfully disagree. I think Mr. Fincham does an excellent job, as all staff members. But I still respectfully disagree. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bly?
Yeah, I have a comment here, and I think if people realize 2 years ago we had a bankrupt state fair. We had a state fair that was possibly leaving Caroline County. We didn't know if it was going to come back. Farm Bureau came in and took over the state fair. We are lucky in Caroline County that we have a state fair. We are extremely lucky that we have the state fair. And I think that's something that we need to realize when the state fair wants to do something. Davenport and Company just said to us earlier that we need to grow our business base. State fair is our biggest business. They operate the state fair for 10 days out of the year, 12 days out of the year. They need to use that facility other times. We can't start, as Mr. Taylor said, we can't start micromanaging what they can and can't do. We have to be open to what they want to do, because otherwise it's on the taxpayers of Caroline County. Whatever event's taking place that's bringing tax revenue into Caroline County, which means the people, the homeowners in Caroline County aren't paying it. And I think that's something that we need to realize as a county, because if we want to say we're open to business, we're not. It's been said to be in the past, we're letting one citizen, and I don't know if it's more than one citizen dictate to us what we're going to do with the state fair.
Mr. Chairman, I absolutely disagree with that. And that is absolutely wrong.
It's
and out of place.
The issue I believe we should be discussing is whether or not the proffers as they are
That's the issue.
are being upheld. Obviously we have a little Obviously we have a little issue of interpretation.
And that's it.
Cars going around the track, in one sense, could be viewed as a school. Cars going around the track, in another sense, could be viewed as racing. It's a fine line that's very fuzzy, and we may or may not be able to clarify it right now. What we may have to ask Mr. Dillon to do is, that might it's your fair, your place. Maybe you might not want to have that there again. Maybe you might want to. That may be one of the things we do. I don't think we're going to come to a resolution now from the discussion we're having, but I think the fact that board members and or citizens feel that the proffer is in question or we're not sure it's being upheld. That's where we are. Now, whether you feel that way or not, I guess we should ask as a board if we want to keep pursuing this issue, ask Mr. Fincham to look at it some more, ask Mr. Dillon to maybe not have this particular rental happen anymore, or ask him to do it every weekend. I mean, we run the whole gamut. How does everyone wish to handle this? That's all we need to know, and we'll move on now. Or if you want to think about it some more, we can think about it and move on later. Mr. Akers, I think we left off with you if you have something to add.
Mr. Chairman, my major concern with this, and I'd love to be able to support Mr. Underwood in what he is asking to be done, but my concern is once the board starts to tinkering with the proffers that have been put in place by the people that have come into Caroline County and asked for rezonings.
Actually, by the board, because we accept the proffers.
Well, they proposed.
Right, they
proposed them,
and
we
we accept.
accepted them. We start tinkering with those proffers. I think it sends a terrible message to a future business that wants to come in and do something such as this. To be honest with you, I'd heard for many, many years that King's Dominion wanted to come to Carolina and wasn't allowed to. That was just a tale. I mean, it did not happen. They never looked at Caroline County seriously to come. If they offered again, I'm for one board member would look at them pretty seriously, to be quite honest with you, because I believe that is a source of revenue for Caroline County and would take a tremendous burden off the back of the citizens of Caroline County. My point of view is let's move on. The project has been approved. The state fair has been in place, gone bankrupt, come back and with a lot of strength. Let's move on from this point and not have any more discussion about this particular issue. I'm sure there are going to be other issues.
Mr. Chairman, this is not about the state fair. This is about the interpretation of a profit. It's not about managing or micromanaging, as my colleagues say. It's not about micromanaging. It's about an interpretation of a proffer that we put in place. It's really that simple. I'm not trying to tell the state fair what they can and cannot do, but I'm saying within the proffers, let's make sure that it's clear. So, I mean, I applaud the state fair for coming back, for State Farm coming back, but that's not an issue for me, maybe for my colleagues, but not for me. The issue is I want to make sure that there's a clear understanding of what is allowed and what is not allowed, so I can talk to my constituents, and not just one, but my constituents, and tell them we made this decision, and that was the interpretation. I agreed or I disagreed. If the other board members disagree, then they vote, hey, it's okay.
And we're at the point of having a very long, detailed discussion about whether the proffers say happy or glad.
Right.
And we have, on one hand, saying we're going to stick to it and make sure it says happy,
Right.
and somebody else is interpreted to say glad.
Absolutely.
And we're at kind of a fine line, and that's, I think, the point. Mr. Fincham was the judge of that point. If he's not the judge of that point, it goes to the BZA. You can ask more people and keep going until somebody says yes. Maybe this will be the last time in April, the last time the fair comes. But it's just that discussion we're having now, and we're getting ready to wrap up with Mr. Seeley.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just go ahead and make a motion to pass by this and be done.
Second. Well, there's been enough discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Nay.
Division, Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
Mr. Black.
Aye.
Mr. Underwood.
Nay.
Mr. Akers.
Aye.
Mr. Seeley.
Aye.
I'm still at happy and glad, so I'm going to vote nay. Motion carries 4-2. All right, at this point, we have finally gotten to the budget presentation, which we're going to give Mr. Cully about 10 minutes to set up his camera, and we'll be right back in 10 minutes. Did I get Mr. Seeley back? Mr. Akers? Oh, you were right on time.
No.
Oh, I still hurt, Ben. I'm holding this cold glass of water. Ben broke my finger. Yes.
The chair?
The door in the bathroom.
Oh, man.
I got this thing adjusted up in the air.
He just like forced me.
I need to
Smash
block
my
this
hand.
hand on.
I can't make it, well, I
Yeah,
can't make
thanks
it
a lot.
fit. All right, Mr. Cully? Yes, if you would. We're gonna view Mr. Cully's budget overview on the projector back here. We're ready, Mr. Cully, for the budget presentation?
Now, Mr.
Or
Chairman,
budget overview presentation.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this is the time of the year where we present the county administrator's proposed budget for FY15. I made a little overview to kind of give you some highlights. Obviously, I would request that we get in a work session as soon as we can and get down to the nuts and bolts of the whole document. But these slides kind of give you an idea where we started and where we ended up without lots of line item detail. Overview of department request, just so you have an idea of where I started. Total department request increased from 14 to 15, $8,755,470, or 20.92%. Just for giggles, the total real estate tax increase needed to fully fund all the requests, 31.57 cents. Obviously, I knew that wasn't going to work. Schools Operations Fund requested increase $2,850,998, or 24.5%. Real estate tax increase needed to fully fund schools operation request, 10 cent and 0.28, so a little less than 11, but more than 10. The real estate tax increase needed to fund the new school's debt service, and this is an actual number, 7.32 cents. So that is money we have borrowed for the approved voter-approved bond referendum for the $25 million for the high school and Madison Elementary. So the total real estate needed to fully fund the school's request would be 17.6 cents. Overview of the county administrator's budget. Total increase proposed from 14 to 15, all funds would be $3,453,801, or 4.2%. The total increase proposed for the general fund, $3,275,148, or 7.82%. And I'll kind of show you what the big items in that are if you haven't already guessed it.
General fund includes debt, too.
Debt. Total real estate tax increase needed to balance budget is proposed right now, 12 cents. Total cut from department request, $5,491,033. So you can see that we whittled down that $8 million request rather significantly. No new positions, no raises are included for any county employees. The first item, transfer to debt retirement fund, $5,412,920. That's an increase of $2,265,061, or 71%, almost 72%. You don't have to round very far to get to 72%. So you can see we took on a lot of debt last year. We have the radio system and the $25 million. So the radio system, $6.5 million, and the $25 million for the schools. Transfer to school operation fund, I'm proposing $12 million even. That's an increase of $364,196, or 3.13% increase in local funds. They are anticipating another $700,000 from the state this year. Transfer to comprehensive services, $678,140. That's an increase of $84,025, or 14%. We do get some money back from the state on that, but that's one of those things, excuse me, the kids that are in service that we have to provide services for is not a controllable number. So that has been an increasing budget line item for most counties for a number of years. Transfer to the utilities fund, $1,755,828. That's an increase of $138,000 $1,427, or 8.56%, but I'll show you why that is. The utilities fund itself is decreasing $65,226, or minus 1.17. I've cut things out of the existing. When I say decreasing, I mean that's decreasing from FY14's current budget, $65,000. So their operating budget will be lower for 15 than 14. We lost revenue due to the sale of the Lake Caroline water system to Aqua, and they plan to put the plant back online. And so the water we've been selling to the residents of Lake Caroline for the Lake Caroline Water Company, we anticipate losing $282,943 in revenue. And that particular revenue line item is 47%. That's at commercial rate, because it's a different tier structure they're in. So it's a significant water. Now, we have the water back. We have water available, so we won't necessarily have to dig a new well, but we will lose that revenue. We anticipate that by July 1. Transfer to social services, $621,556. That's an increase of $40,497, or 6.97%. A chunk of that is 2 new positions that were added sort of mid-year, so there's some salary that the board agreed to pick up on that, so it's not quite as bad as that looks. Transfer to capital improvement fund, we've got some issues with the courthouse security system, video and the card access, and all the electronic doors and various things. That system is more than 10 years old and needs to be replaced. So and that's in both courthouses, the circuit court and general district juvenile. Expense. This is just an interesting way I like to look at things. Expense increase excluding transfer to debt retirement in schools. So how much are things going up if you took out what I just showed you to debt retirement and to schools? That's $432,789, or really 1.03%. So you can see overall, I'm not asking that the budget have a tremendous increase. And if you look at transfer to all funds, which would be utilities and CSA, if you take all the transfers to other funds out, the expense increase is $213,101, which is obviously less than a penny, or 0.51% of our expenses. So that kind of gives you an idea the budget's pretty flat. A couple other increases we've got in. I've had a couple of board members talk to me about maybe the need to do general reassessment. We do not have to do that this year, but we will have to do it next year. We will be up against our 6-year time frame. So this would be a 5-year general reassessment instead of a 6 if the board decides to keep that in. And we have $201,495 in for that at this time. We did purchase a new radio system. The tower rental for the 6 tower sites that radio system is going to operate off of is about an increase of $100,060. That's an ongoing cost of not owning or building your own towers. Given that it's more than $1 million per tower site, that's another $6 million to build all 6 towers if we were to have to replace those. So it is, while it's $100,000 in leasing tower space, it's much cheaper than borrowing $6 million, which debt service would be another $600,000 or so, $690,000. So we have a fairly significant increase for regional jails, $77,285. Is about 3.88%. That's not all they asked for. I cut that some, trying to make things balance, but we are seeing increased numbers of what you call inmate days. That's how they look at that, how many inmates per how many days. And that's a trend up we have no control over, but we hope that number will hold. Total cut from FY14 department budgets, $176,203. What that means is if you take everybody else's budget that they currently are operating under for FY14, our current budget that we are on right now is $176,203 has been cut out of that moving into 15. So while we do have increases in places, there are places that we've already chopped and taken and reduced and tried to find savings where it might exist. A couple other things that you, I'm sure, are aware of, maybe the public's forgotten. We lost some revenue due to the boundary line adjustment from the town of Port Royal. We estimate that to be $61,558. So that's just revenue that's not there to pay bills. We lost it, I mentioned this earlier, but just to reiterate, we lost revenue from Aqua Virginia Water Plant that to provide water to Lake Carolina is $282,943. So proposed expenditures, $45,130,841. That's an increase, as I stated earlier, just repeat myself a couple times, $3,275,148. I got too many eights in there as I typed somewhere, or 7.82%. Total local funds for school, $17,928,418. That includes $12 million for operations, $5,811,035 for school debt service payments, and $117,383 for existing lease payments for school buses. We're not proposing in this budget to buy any school buses, any sheriff's cars, any trash trucks, any vehicles at all. The only capital project in the whole budget is that one on the security system for the courthouse. Proposed real estate tax increase, as I mentioned earlier, 12 cents is needed to balance the budget. That would take the rate from 72 cents to 84 cents per $100 of assessed value. That is $19,827,047, which is increasing by $2,610,390, or 15.16%. Personal property, we don't anticipate any personal property tax rate change. As you heard earlier tonight, as we were working on the second quarter report, personal property is down a little bit, but I don't recommend changing anything. Hopefully there'll be new cars and some proration, and we will catch up to our budgeted number for 15 that we budgeted for 14. So we're pretty much budgeting personal property. It's got a little bit of increase, and that would be $62,027, basically on just growth in personal property. But not due to any kind of change to values or tax rate. The FY15 budget includes debt service payments for the $6.5 million new public safety radio system and for the $25 million voter-approved high school and Madison Elementary School renovations and additions. These two projects are equal to 11 cents of the 12 cents proposed real estate tax rate increase. And I think with that, I will gladly answer questions that I can, but would recommend that we move to to work sessions. We got a public hearing scheduled for the 25th of this month, and we do need to set a tax rate so that the commissioner will have time to get the bills prepared and the treasurer will have time to send those out, so folks will hopefully have them a month in advance of June 5th when they would have to have those paid.
Thank you, Mr. Cully. Do we have any general questions for Mr. Cully at this time? Mr. Taylor?
No.
Mr. Black? Mr. Underwood?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Akers?
No, sir.
Mr. Seeley?
None at this time.
Okay. Mr. Cully, thank you for the budget presentation. Again, the board had said everybody was flat. We're flat funding all of the departments with the exception of the increase of $360,000 for schools. You've done a good job. We're probably going to work through it to see if we can make it less than 12 cents. And hopefully we've got some answers from the Davenport folks that are going to come up in a second. So thank you, and when we get to the end of the meeting, we'll try to look for some budget work session dates. So, okay, that brings us to agenda item number 9. Kyle, you're back on. You're saving me $1 million this year, next year? You didn't think I forgot that number, did you?
Over a couple years.
Over a couple of years?
Over a couple years.
A couple is 2.
10 years.
Couple is 2. All right, so that's $100,000 a year. Okay.
Roughly speaking.
Go ahead.
Roughly speaking. Well, as Ms. Hatcher hands things out, so Act 2 of our thing tonight, talk about the fun stuff and the ability to refinance existing debt for savings purposes. And what we have, in terms of the presentation, we've got a couple pages and a bunch of details at the back. So I'm going to try and summarize things for you. Big picture, the thought is, we're going to talk about it. The thought is that your next meeting, you would actually take formal action with the resolution to be put together by Mr. Emerson and his colleagues. So if you'd like what you hear tonight, we'll be back here next meeting to take formal action, close after that. So on page 1, what we did leading up to this, we competitively bid out to local, regional, national banking institutions, a refinancing of a sort of a potential couple different pieces of county debt. We gave them a couple different options to look at, and we got some nice bids back on one of those particular options. Could have been anywhere from $22 to $8.5 million. We got the $8.5 million piece back. We like that a lot. We think it makes sense, and so that's what we're recommending to you. That piece is a 2002 series of bonds. It's tied to the courthouse. There's about $8.5 million rounding off left outstanding, about 20 years to go on it. Your average interest rate that you're paying right now on it is about 5%. So just sort of order of magnitude-wise, talk about $8.5 million, 20 years to go, you're paying about 5% right now. So what we got back were bids from two different banking institutions, BB&T and SunTrust. They're very active in our marketplace. And they gave us a couple different options. And you see those at the bottom of page 1. So you take an initial glance on those, and again, thinking about right now we're paying 5%. Those rates are all in the 2 to 3% range. So as an initial sort of blush at things, that's very positive, bringing the rate down. Now they've given us a couple different ways to look at this. It's a 20-year loan right now. They gave us BB&T gave us a 15-year fixed rate of a 2.90. So it would basically be shortening the loan by 5 years, which is nice, but it makes our payment go up. BB&T and SunTrust both gave us a 10-year fixed rate with a 20-year amortization. BB&T at a 2.70, SunTrust at a 3%. And then BB&T gave us a 15-20 of 3.22. And so in the back of your presentation, we've run a bunch of numbers to compare those different options. We'll talk about our recommended option on the next page. So as we ran all those various options, the one that came out is looking best to us and what we're recommending to you is the BB&T, what I'll call a 10-20. That basically means that the rate is fixed for 10 years of a 20-year life. That rate would be a 2.70. And so when I reference the $1 million, roughly speaking, what we're talking about is over the first 10 years alone, when we know that that rate is 2.70, you'd be saving about $1.1 million, the roughly $1 million I was talking about. Those are the dollars that you know you'd be saving over that 10-year period. When you look at that, you also have the ability with that BB&T loan to kind of pick an option that gives you some prepayment flexibility. So as you think about it, you get a rate that's fixed for 10 years. You get second 10 years that would be set at the market at that time, but you've got prepayment flexibility over the first 10 years. So as time elapses, as we watch rates, as we watch markets, you've got the ability before you get to that 10-year time period to sort of term out that second 10 years even before you get to the sort of 10-year time period. So point being, we would know what the savings is of the first 10 years, and then we'd have an ability to kind of work with the rate over the second half before we had to get sort of right up against the 10-year period. And given the sort of, we know what the rate is for half of it, but not necessarily for the other, we ran a variety of what we call break-even analyses, where we kind of play a what-if game and say, okay, what does the rate have to be over the second half of the loan such that we're not really going to be happy with the financing that we picked? And what that ends up being is if we were to look at, I'm going to go to the bottom break-even analysis. When we look at a refinancing, there's a benchmark we typically look at called the net present value savings. What that basically means is you take the savings over time, present value it back to today, compare it to the amount of loan you're refinancing. You want that number to be 3% or above. And so the break-even, such that you would only hit that minimum 3% level, is a almost 11%, 10.7% interest rate at the end of the first 10 years. That's a really high, historically speaking, 10-year interest rate, which tells us that when you look at the sort of the cost benefit of taking a shorter term fixed rate, there's an advantage to doing that because the rate would really have to be higher than it's been historically, for us to necessarily not be happy